Hey y'all, I just learned something last week that I wanted to share with you today, but I have to set the scene. Remember back in the day, after a sermon was given, usually the pastor or whoever delivered the sermon would say, musicians playing softly. And the musicians would be like, say less, I'm playing softly. And then they would start the beginnings of an altar call. And we all knew when we heard certain music, you knew it was an altar call. And all right. So I'm saying that like that because all of us who are churched, we experienced some of the same things over and over and over again. And we experienced also what is in psychology known as the lullaby effect. Well, here's another scripture that maybe you didn't know meant what it means. So I'm hoping I can share this with you today. When the minister would give the altar call, sometimes you will hear them say, Jesus will say to you today, take my yoke upon you and learn of me. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. We heard that so many times. I heard that so many times over years of going to church. I never processed it. And when I did process it, I would always say, why would Jesus tell me to take a yoke? Why would a pastor do an altar call and ever say that to somebody who doesn't know the Lord? Take a yoke on you, a burden? How's a burden ever going to be easy? All right. Well, you got to look at Matthew 11, verses 29 and 30. And actually, I'm going to start at verse 28. Check this out. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Y'all, we have heard that. We have heard that. We have heard that over and over in church. And now I know what he meant. And you're going to know too if you keep listening. You remember in the I almost said the Old Testament, but if you've read the Gospels, there have been times where Jesus reprimanded the Pharisees or the Sadducees, the rabbis, the other rabbis in the building, because he would say that they would put burdens on people that were too heavy. So when he says here, the burden, his burden is light, that his yoke is easy and his burden is light, you know he was a rabbi, right? You know that. He was a rabbi, a master, teacher. He was a rabbi. Well, if you followed this rabbi or that rabbi, they each had ways or a set of teaching. They had a way of understanding and interpreting the Bible. And it was called a yoke. It was called a yoke. A yoke was a set of teachings by a particular rabbi. So when people during that time period decided they wanted to study under a rabbi, they would take his yoke, his way of interpreting the Bible, his way of interpreting scripture, his way of living as the correct and only way. So when Jesus says, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, learn my way of interpreting the scripture, learn my way of living your life, because it's easy, it's light. And when you think about the idea that rabbis during that time period could have all numbers of rules and ways of teaching and being and living, and they would place the burden of that yoke on the people, and it would be too much for people to bear. They were always messing up. If you interpreted the Bible this way, there are 600 laws you have to follow. And if you interpret it this way, they have 400 laws. And if you get it, plus the traditions. So it's not just the teachings, it's also the traditions. And Jesus said that his way, his yoke was easy and his burden light. Do you see now what he meant? Do you see it? Because he said there are only two laws. All the laws could be contained in two. One is to love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, and your spirit. And the other one is to love your neighbor as yourself. And I'm paraphrasing those two. But he said within those two was everything. Imagine the burden, the yoke of just remembering those two commands and living correctly by those two commands, as opposed to the burdens and the traditions, the yoke that the other rabbis were putting on people. I hope this helps you, changes a lot for me. Next video is going to be about the people who chose to take his yoke. All right, y'all. God bless.